All right. Well, if anyone's absolutely new here, just to follow along, we'll do three different meditations: a teaching, formal meditation, and then a group, kind of Quaker, meeting at the very end. And just come along for the ride and see what you think. Trying to get to the heart of despair after spending a month contemplating it is what I spent really this week doing. And so I've got a poem for you. It's a bit longer than my normal kinds of poems, but it took a while to get to the heart of it. So I'm going to give you the poem, and then we'll just sort of touch in on a few places that maybe we can open up. And of course, like always, the poem will be in the Monday morning newsletter there, so that you can take another look at it if it's, if you want to. Okay, so here we go. It's no coincidence that the first words that Jesus speaks in John's gospel are, "What are you looking for?" After the big splash in the Jordan River and the Baptist calling Jesus the Lamb of God, a couple of John's disciples peeled off and began to follow Jesus. Jesus noticed that. He noticed he was beginning to be tailed and turned and asked them, "What are you looking for?" What are you looking for is the fundamental question of the human journey. When the basic necessities of life are in place, humans are created to begin to seek meaning. Famous Holocaust survivor Viktor Frankl wrote, "Existing without meaning for humans is like existing without air." Dante said something very similar 7 centuries earlier when he said, I care not where my body takes me, as long as my soul is embarked on a meaningful journey." What are you looking for? I hope it's a meaningful journey. The agony of meaninglessness is at the heart of the despair that grips so many of us today. As we've been learning, despair is a compound, complex emotion that's made up of other elements, many other elements: grief, fear, anger, helplessness, loss of direction. But the core element of despair is the lack of meaning. When you find yourself in despair, if you listen closely, you will hear despair whisper, "What are you looking for?" There are three basic intelligences in each of us. We've been talking about that now for 2 years. 3 different operating systems. Each operating system is needed to master a certain dance. The body learns the survival dance. The mind learns the strategic dance. And the soul is master of the sacred dance. The agenda of the soul's sacred dance is the meaningful journey of becoming exactly who you are meant to be. If you have mastered the first 2 dances, but have no inkling of the third, you will eventually be blessed with a visit by the dark angel of despair. A mentor and a friend of mine, a friend of my soul, once wrote, "Sometimes when the river is ice, ask me mistakes I have made. Ask me if what I've done is my life." How many of us feel a deep sense of permission to lead our own lives? Not the lives of our parents or our cultures, not the lives that we've been told we should lead, but the absolutely one of a kind life we were created for. You can befriend the dark angel of despair. She will guide you to the life you're meant to live and to the world you need to bless with that one precious life of yours. And that, my friend, is what your soul is looking for. All right. Well, it's quite a bit. So let's just touch back on a few points, and then we'll be able to contemplate them ourselves. It's sort of interesting that if you're interested in the Jesus script and way at all, that the first words that come out of his mouth in probably the most mystical Gospel of John, is, "What are you looking for?" Yeah. Uh, and I think that's the fundamental question of the human journey. Uh, Merton said one time, our life is shaped by the end we live for. Our life is shaped by the end we live for. So, what are you looking for? Now, when the basic necessities of life are in place, humans are created to begin to seek the answer to that, to seek meaning. Maslow's hierarchy of needs. If you're living in Haiti right now, you're not tuned into the Zoom. If you're living in many parts of the world, you wouldn't have time for this Zoom thing because in Haiti, people are trying to avoid being shot, trying to get firewood, trying to get fresh drinking water. They're on the very primary level of the what Maslow considered the basic needs of survival and um, safety. Yeah. But if you have the basic necessities of life in place, which I would venture to say that all of us do pretty much because you're here, you're not having to, you have the ability to go into those, go up that hierarchy of, different needs. No, you're seeking meaning. That might be the thing that I think might be the thing that we all share in this community. We got a lot of differences in this community, a lot of different flavors of human beings, but I think maybe we're all seeking meaning. The famous Holocaust survivor Frankel wrote, that to live without meaning is like living without air for human beings. And Dante said, "I care not where my soul takes me. I care not where my body takes me, as long as my soul is embarked on a meaningful journey." You don't hear the word soul used much anymore. Not even in psychology, the psyche, of which psychology it means the study of the soul. The psyche would speak for soul. But what is it? What is the soul? Well, it is that part of us that seeks meaning. It's that part of us that seeks to expand a life, you see. That's what the soul is about. I think we have to start having a vocabulary for soul. And I hope you're looking for a meaningful journey. I think maybe that's what unites us all as a community here. And then, if you want to looking, at the heart of despair, it is this lack of meaning. And you just watch the news a little bit. For being so as wealthy as we are as a country, there's a terrific lack of meaning, which brings us these 18-year-old shooters. Believe they're looking for a meaning, believe it or not, whether it's to be a martyr or for a group or just to actually somebody's going to finally see me, even if it's in this horrible way. I think we have a terrific lack of meaning. The pharmaceutical companies know that, which is, and if you have this lack of meaning and you're filled with despair and you don't know what to do with it, which most of us have not been. We're trying to learn. That's the purpose of this study of the dark emotions. But most people don't know. They don't even recognize despair has taken over their life. That, because again, there's all those, it's subtle. There's grief, there's fear, there's anger. One of those might be prominent, or just this feeling of helplessness or loss of direction. Ultimately, lack of meaning. It's a compound. It's subtle, and when it's not tended to, as Miriam Greenspan talks about, and I agree with her, it'll tend to coagulate and stop in your body and stop things from flowing, and before you know it, you're in the ditch of depression. But what I've come to in a month of meditating on this is the lack of meaning is sort of like the planet, which all those other things constellate around: grief, fear, anger, helplessness, loss of direction. It's like they're all moons or satellites, and they circle around this core of despair, which is lack of meaning. And if we were trained to listen with the ear of the heart, then we could hear that whisper of despair saying, "What are you looking for?" But we're not trained, and it gets drowned out by all the yakety-yak of our culture. And then, I'm talking about there's these three basic intelligences, these three operating systems we have that we need to use in concert. But they stair a step up, just like Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And each intelligence, I use the image, needs to master a kind of dance. The body learns the survival dance. Our body operating system, which is basically our childhood operating system. We had emotions, we had feelings, and we had sensations as a young child. And so, survival and safety was what that was for. And we, got to put a check mark there. You give an A+. We survived. We survived our families of origin, good or bad. And then the mind started to develop. The left brain ego mind started to develop. Literally, it's not quite developed there at all. It probably doesn't develop till we're 20, 21 in most cases for humans. But it starts to develop, and that's what we use to do this strategic dance, to actually strategically try to look for things like belonging and love and esteem. Then you're going up the other needs we have, up Maslow's things, so belonging, love and esteem, cognition, an aesthetic sense, those middle four needs. And, the left brain's helps with that. I've been writing this poem for a week, and I'm using the left brain, a lot. And the aesthetic ability, trying to get it clear and it's beautiful as I can. So that's the second operating system. But then the third operating system, it's really the operating system of the heart. The heart is the operating system of the soul. That's what's fitted for the sacred dance. And the sacred dance involves the last two of Maslow's hierarchy. You can look this up, just go to Wikipedia and look it up if you're not the last two things are a feeling of an experience of self-actualization, that you actually can start to actualize who you really are, and then transcendence, a sense of actually uh, being able to even go beyond the personal aspect and connect to the sacred, transcendent part of the universe. Yeah, and the soul and the heart operating system is what we use for that. And you can't get to that when the wolf is at the door or people are shooting at you. I mean, you just have to drop back, or if that's your steady state, like so many people in the world that are living just on the very edge of survival. Well, you're not ready for this conversation. You don't have the luxury that we have to have this conversation, you see, to where we can actually think about the level of meaning that would be becoming who you're meant to be, and then actually befriending and going deeper in your relationship with the transcendent, the sacred. I say at one point, if you mastered the first two dances, but you have no inkling of the third, you will eventually be blessed with a visit by the dark angel of despair. I do think these three dark emotions are dark angels. They're angels because they hold something good for us. They hold transformation for us. And so we're blessed when they appear. That's one of the main messages of Greenspan, and that we have to befriend these things because they hold something for us. So this is exactly what Rumi's talking about in the guest house. Welcome and entertain them all, because each has come as a guide from beyond. Each has some guidance in it. The guidance in despair is, what are you looking for? It asks you that. It's a kind of meta question there for the whole journey. Our life is formed by the ends we live with. I quoted Bill Stafford, who is really a poetic mentor of mine, and like I said, a friend of my soul, because he's such a great poet. And he said in his poem, "Ask me sometimes when the river is ice." In other words, that's a really good image right there of despair, of a river that's frozen. That's what Greenspan means when you can't tend to despair, it will coagulate, stop the flow. So sometimes when the river is frozen, and despair is a kind of icy experience. Sometimes when the river is ice, ask me mistakes I have made. Ask me if what I've done is my life. Yeah. I mean, I remember my father, I've mentioned this before, late in life when he was living here in dementia, he asked me one time if I ever thought of going back to law school. And I said, "Dad, I never was in law school. That was your dream." He dreamt of it, but he never did it himself. And, our parents, our family, they sort of had a vision of what we should or shouldn't do. I remember when I was teaching at St. Thomas in Houston, I got a couple of alumni there. I had a black kid. His name was Mike Dotson, and he came up to me. He had gone to the guidance counselor in Father Rene Vermillion, and he wanted to sign up for chemistry. And Vermillion wouldn't let him sign up. He said, "No, your people don't do well in that." And he said, "Well," he says, I got all A's in all my math and everything." He said, "I know," but so he wouldn't let him do it. And Dotson came up to me and he told me, so I went and talked to Vermillion, but he wouldn't budge. I mean, that was he was a guidance counselor, and I just was so mad. But so he took mechanical drawing or something. I don't know what he took, but some years later, he showed up at my door in a three-piece suit with his card. He gave me his card. He was working for the oil companies. And he said he had gone to University of Houston, got a chemistry degree. And he said he came back to see the guidance counselor, Father Vermillion, but Vermillion had died by that time. And he said, I came back to give Vermillion my card to let him know that at least one of our people can do chemistry. Yeah, so there's so many ways that life tells you, limits what your life should be. And then and they ask a question, how many of us really feel a deep permission to lead our own life? And that's something that it takes a while to hit, that you have permission to lead your own life, whatever that is. And that you're an absolutely one of a kind life. You're created to live this one of a kind life, no other ones. Even if you have a twin, and some people in here who have twins, still the DNA is so close. If you're a twin, you know how close that is, but still, you have a unique path that's just yours. And if you can befriend the dark angel of despair, my poem last week was "Chaos is a Friend of Mine." Well, hopefully this work we're doing for these months will encourage you to go out on a limb and say, grief is a friend of mine. Despair is a friend of mine. And then what we're going into in November is fear. Fear is a friend of mine. That's a whole different look at it, not to be defended against, but when it shows up, when the dark angel of any of those emotions show up, it's guest house time. From Rumi was so wise, he knew that. Okay. If you can befriend despair, she will guide you to the life you're meant to live, and to the world we need to bless. The world you need to bless. The idea of just let this vision or imaginative vision sink in. What if for just even one day, everybody on the planet, all 6 or 7 billion of us, just spent the 24 hours or the waking 16 hours or whatever, blessing anybody they could. Just blessing, not cheating, not trying to get ahead of them, not trying to kill them, not trying to outvote them, or all these things we spend our time doing. Trying to hate them or love them. No, we just spent a day. The whole world spent a day just trying to bless everything they meant. And in the end, if you start living the life you're meant to live, that is the primary blessing that you bring into the world. You bless them with this one precious life of yours, and that's that's really what your soul is looking for. But that's you're going all the way up that hierarchy of Maslow's needs, and I think it might be worth looking at that, just because then you're in self-actualization. You realize like a month before Merton died, he said to a group of people in Calcutta, he says, brothers and sisters, what we have to be is what we are. Now he's speaking there about that self-actualization, that seventh rung on the ladder of Maslow's. What we have to be is what we are. That's the blessing that we primarily bring into the world. And then, and then you are really like right up in contact with the sacred. Meister Eckhart, who was there, he said, the eye with which I see God is the eye with which God sees me. This unity of the human and the sacred, that's the top of the food chain. a guy like the Dalai Lama. That's why I was using music from his album, and then his his prayer that he says, sometimes I say this prayer 100 times a day. Well, that should buck us up, because uh, that means 100 times a day he's forgotten what the meaning of his life was. And then he says, as long as space endures, and as long as living beings remain, until then may I too abide to dispel the misery of the world. That's why Dalai Lama is not a it's not a figure of despair, though he could make a case. If anybody was going to despair and be depressed, it would be him, but he's not. He just makes everybody feel better. But it takes a practice. It takes knowing that you have to know what you're looking for. So as we go into meditation now, into formal meditation where the words stop, we can go into silence. That can be a kind of koan that you're going down with once you break the surface of thought and leave thought behind. What am I looking for? Really? Really? Okay, well, thanks for listening.